Welcome, Ashley Warren and Celeste Conowitch to Dragon Talk. Hello.
Yay!
Good. Doing good. Excited to be here. Excited to be talking about some frosty business in the middle of all of this heat.
Yeah.
Are you feeling the heat wave here? Both of you are generally in the Seattle area, right?
No, I'm in Reno, Nevada.
So
it's
probably,
what do you know about
Very
heat?
cold there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have mountains here. So we have the Sierra Nevada mountains and Lake Tahoe. So we do have a very, alpine landscape, which was fun for Icewind Dale things. But yeah, we've also had lots of smoke here from California, and it has been very hot. So I think probably similar to what the rest of the West Coast is experiencing.
Yeah, up here. Yeah, where I'm in the Seattle area, and yeah, it's just hot and smoky. So
hot and smoky.
Doing the best you can.
Yeah, we forgot to brand the weather correctly for Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden's release this week. We were going to go for, day after tomorrow style blizzards. But,
that would have been nice, but I guess, it's hard marketing. There's so much to do.
It is, yeah.
Instead we cast fireballs in the sky, I think. As well.
This would have been appropriate for Descent into Avernus.
Yes.
Avernus! We got to really think about this.
I have seen a lot of people say that, like, oh, why does it smell like Avernus outside?
It's hot as Avernus.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to Avernus, we're getting there.
That makes the existential dread of climate change so much more fun.
Enjoyable for all.
Well, when you are feeling too much of the heat, you can cool off with a dip into Icewind Dale. So it is actually appropriately timed.
That's right. It's like a refreshing drink.
And you two know everything there is about this book, so tell us everything. Tell us.
Oh my gosh. But no spoilers, though.
Except for the spoilers. But all the good
spoilers.
Stuff. But no spoilers. But truly, you had a huge role in creating this book. What can you tell us what your roles were in this? What did you do?
Ashley, you go first.
Yeah, I never want to speak over
We're
someone.
too polite. Sorry.
I know. You go first. You go first.
You go first. Your name starts with an A. You go first.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take it. Celeste and I both served as writers on the writing team alongside some just other incredible writers in our community. And yeah, I feel like our whole writing team each contributed, I think like a chapter and some other encounters throughout. And I mean, with, a book like this, there's always so many parts to it. There's, the main story beats, and then there's all of the, the starter adventure content to really get your group going in one direction or another. And then, there's all the fun stuff like the creatures and the trinkets and all that good stuff. So, I think Celeste and I both contributed bits and pieces of all of that, right? Is that accurate?
I wrote 3 chapters for this, so and kind of all over the place, which is very, very cool. So I got to have a lot of fun writing in this book in particular, but gosh, there were so many cool things. I mean, we were on the writing team, one of us wrote like a poem that appears, like a magical poem that appears in this book. And then, another one of us got to do like the trinket table, that they introduced for every adventure. I kind of focused on some of the I got to make a cool dungeon in this book, which is so much fun. But yeah, there was just so much to do on this writing team. So I feel like we really got to explore a lot of different moving parts of making a book, and Icewind Dale, which is such an incredible setting on its own with so much history. So bringing that to life was just a very exciting experience.
Were you both, or had you read The Crystal Shard or any of the R.A. Salvatore books, leading up to this?
Yeah, I had read them maybe 10 years before, and when this project, came across, I was like, what? We're going here? Oh my gosh. And I remember through the whole process, I re-listened to all of the Salvatore series.
Smart.
So it was just, I had Victor Bavine, the narrator, in my ear as I was listening to these Audible books. Just so much so much drist, so much angst in preparation for this project. And then, of course, I had the books from 4th edition, which was the last time we visited Icewind Dale in Wizards of the Coast. So that was really exciting to get to pull those out. And, I still had my map that was included with that 4E book of 10 towns and everything. So I really got to delve into all of my old boxes and bring it all back out to the front. So that was very fun.
That's super cool. What about you,
not
Ashley?
nearly as cool as Celeste, where she's had this long, awesome legacy of playing D&D. But I did read Crystal Shard when the project started, and I also read At the Mountains of Madness by Lovecraft. And I wanted to make sure I did my research. And I actually love Icewind Dale. It's one of my favorite settings just in the Forgotten Realms. So I already knew kind of bits and pieces about it just from other projects that I had worked on and just a general interest in that setting. So I wanted to make sure that I could do that setting justice. And I think that whenever we work on a book like this with a setting that is so kind of classic and beloved, there's this mix of bringing our new ideas to it and building upon that lore and creating new lore, but also honoring all of the lore that's come before. So I wanted to make sure that I could do both. But yeah, it was fun, really just like immersing myself in Icewind Dale for a few months working on that.
That's so cool. So what is it like? Like, what's the process like when you're working on a book with many, many different writers? Like, what is do you get assigned certain topics, or do you get to pick and choose things, or like, are you pitched an overall story and then you guys get to fill in the blanks? Like, I really don't know. Like, what is it like working on a book like this?
Kind of a mix of all those things, I think. I don't know what you think, Celeste. I know for our process, because you don't always know who else is working on the book right away. And so I think our team was kind of assembled, one person at a time. And then eventually we all kind of found out who else was working on it. And then Chris Perkins had shared with us kind of a general outline and some other materials about it. And then I think we had our writer group came together really quickly because we were all like freaking out and super excited. And so we all kind of came together organically. I think it was on Twitter, and we started a Twitter, direct message chat, and we're just like, oh my God. And then we started talking about okay, well I think this section would be fun for you, and maybe I'll do this section. And then it kind of happened like that. But the kind of main narrative arc is already, determined. I don't know, Celeste, do you want to speak to more of that process, if I'm remembering all that correctly?
Yeah, no, because so for this project in particular, Chris Perkins was the lead writer for this project. So walking in, we got a general, this is the story, these are going to be the beats, this is how we're thinking we're going to divide it up. And I remember the very scary email where it's here's how we're going to divide it up, here are the chapters, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you say to that? All of it? That's not, you can't, nope, there's a team. So we did get some say in, these sections, and we're like, hey, Chris, I really want to do this. I love dungeon crawls. I want to do this. Or I, really think I can do these starting adventures. Let me pick this. So, we kind of all talked about it and put in what we wanted for the project. And then based on that, Chris gave us our assignments. And then we were sort of allowed to, run within the confines of this larger story that we had. And I think our experience as a team was very different than perhaps other campaigns or books, which I know, the freelancers typically don't have a lot of interaction through the process. I feel like all the pieces are very separate, and then they get put together, at the end and changed and modified for flow. But for us, we all bonded pretty instantly on this process, because we are also, this was our first, big publication with Wizards that we were all working on. And several of us were very new to the writing process. So we immediately out the door reached out to each other for emotional support and being like, hey, I am so excited and so scared. How are you feeling? Am I the only one terrified? But we bonded through that. And so for the whole process, we were able to share drafts back and forth with each other before actually, sending them to for peer review or big reviews, and, check in and be able to thread pieces of the story together across our own individual sections. So I really feel like we we sort of had the best experience, maybe not to brag, with our freelancing group, because it was just so amazing to have the support, being able to check in with Hannah Carlin and Michaela Ebel, and, just all of us like sharing in this big group thread. We still have that thread going to this day.
Oh yeah.
And it's called The Valkyries. So we're all the Valkyries. Nice. And, this is like what we do. And we just talk about all of our projects and everything. It's an incredible support system we had to get through this. So that was sort of our experience.
Yeah, it sounds like you, like for most of these projects, you're right. There isn't like this writer's room type situation where, everybody's in the same, well, we can't do this physically now anyway, but, like a TV production where everyone's like bouncing ideas off each other and then someone goes and does some work and then brings it back to the group. Most TRPG products are not done that way, but it sounds like in some ways, this group of the Valkyries kind of created that system for this project, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can only speak from my own experience, but that was the highlight of working on this book. Like, obviously, the book in general is really special and exciting, but it was really getting to work with these other writers who I've admired and whose work I was a fan of, and so it was really exciting. I feel like we all like kind of were fangirling about each other, and I think that we just made it a point to do regular check-ins. We did a few video calls, which of course was a little difficult for Anne Gregerson, one of our writers, because she's in Denmark and she's our actual Viking, which was really
she had
awesome.
A lot of late nights talking to us.
Which
time zones.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But for the most part, we just made it work, and it was so great to just always have this little support network. And I don't know if I could have done this without everyone. So, and I think it made the book better because we were able to really check in with each other. And plus, like when we do get our kind of writing directives for the different sections we worked on, you're not given very much, which is exciting because it means that you have freedom to really craft the story, knowing the objective in mind. But for some of the even bigger chapters, you're given like 3 lines.
Yeah.
And so some of us were like, Chris, we need a little bit more information.
Whoa. What? Yeah. The burden of choice was pretty overwhelming, I think, working from an outline to like, how do we make this idea? How do we bring this, like the 3 description, sentence on an outline for a chapter, like how do you bring that to life, especially when you know that the audience for this book is going to be huge, and that's constantly in the back of your head, like you're writing for so many people, so having people to lean on and ask questions to and support just in general was key for this.
Do you think when you're writing a book, like, or any of the projects that you work on, like an adventure project, are you writing it with the perspective of the dungeon master? Like, are you thinking like a dungeon master when you're actually writing?
I mean, yes and no. I feel like my understanding for writing, game books like this is that the readership and audience for these particular campaign books is usually the dungeon master versus like another supplement that has, player facing options. And so I tried to write things with the perspective of a dungeon master in mind, but I both DM and play in my home game, and I like to read through the campaign books, usually not for spoilers, but so I think that it's something that should maybe tailor to both audiences, but cater to the dungeon masters because the content is there for them to facilitate the story at their table. But I think there's a bit of a balance there.
Yeah, I guess when I design for any product, my goal, especially in 5th edition, this has been an ongoing trend, is to make the content as accessible as possible for anyone at any stage in the game. So that means, writing your box text so it's easy for somebody to read or to listen to and understand what's happening. It's also, writing your adventures to be concise and, maybe not that word count, but maybe the word count you actually need, I think is a philosophy of design that has been kind of like the modern progression of things. And so it was nice in this book, something that came up too at the very beginning was that like, for this book, we wanted to write it more in the style of like the essentials kit, the new essentials kit that came out, where that information was really like easy to understand and, took the burden of having to, oh my gosh, I got mail.
Oh my God.
Oh my
fan
gosh.
mail. The fan mail's pouring in.
Oh my gosh. So, taking the burden off of anyone who wants to look at this book, so they don't have to interpret what's happening before they can run the game. They can just jump right into running the game, or reading or listening to anything that comes up here. So yeah, I love that our focus was to make this easy for both dungeon masters and players, or anyone, to understand what's happening.
That's awesome. What just going off of something you said, Celeste, where you mentioned the Essentials kit, that's something I've actually seen a lot of reviewers so far of the adventure, specifically call out. So whatever you did is very transferable and understandable to, at least a critic's eye about that. So I guess my question, and maybe I'll throw this to you, Ashley, is what is that quality? What is that Essentials kit kind of quality, and how does it, kind of show itself in Rime of the Frostmaiden?
Yeah, I think Celeste touched on that a little bit, but I think having just straightforward box text, not really getting too prose focused with the box text, it's really there to help evoke the atmosphere of this book. And atmosphere is huge in this book. It's like literally what it's about. And making sure that any sort of like complicated story elements or mechanics are laid out in just a very straightforward way. Like, here's kind of the natural procession of how this should be facilitated at your table. Here's how you can adjust this so that your characters don't necessarily get stuck and frustrated. And I know, like, in some of the later chapters, there's like these challenges that the characters may encounter, and so writing those was kind of a challenge in how to streamline it as simple as possible for dungeon masters, because it should be fun and challenging to play, but not necessarily not necessarily challenging and frustrating to facilitate as a dungeon master. And that's always tricky when you have puzzles or things that aren't necessarily about combat or role play, and they kind of bring together strategy. And so that's kind of the struggle for any narrative designer, which is fun too, is like, how can I make this kind of abstract concept play out at the table in a way that's fun and engaging for everyone. So I think that it was just a matter of keeping the prose very simple and descriptive, and honing in on the most important elements that a dungeon master needs to know to really have a specific scene play out in a fun way.
I imagine this has to be incredibly hard, a different type of writing, and where you have to actually be, they usually say when you're writing, don't edit, but I feel like you kind of have to with this type of writing, because I've written fiction, and it's this is my story, so I'm just going to tell you everything that you need to know in the story. But when you're writing an adventure, you don't want to tell the whole story, because that's up to the players and the dungeon masters to tell, but you still have to give them enough of a story. So how do you balance that when you're writing it?
Yeah, I think the best way to do this, write a lot and then run adventures for people and see how they respond. And if you can, be a player in the game that you wrote, and somebody else should DM it, and watch how they struggle or don't struggle to run your adventure. I think it is a great way. Play testing is so important for anything. For this project, we couldn't play test those pieces. They did get sent to Wizards, and then play tests were done. So it was calling back to all of that information. Like, what do I need as a dungeon master? What's the bare minimum I need? Okay, let me make sure I have that. What's the bare minimum I think other people are going to need? Okay, we should probably have that. And then maybe lean on the side of I think this is good, as opposed to adding more, trying to really just hit those basics, just the needs to know, what does it look like? What does it smell like? What happens here? What creatures are here? Cool, we've answered that. Now let's go. And something I really enjoy about this book, and kind of the direction books have been going in for adventures, is also sort of lifting the curtain and speaking directly to the dungeon master in the book, for tips about how to run this game, or how to run these scenes in particular. So it's more of an honest conversation, which I feel like is easier for people to both relate to and to write to. Because, if you're imagining what you would say to your friend who's about to DM this book, and then, writing like that. One of my absolute favorite things I got to write for this book, it's a tiny little section. It's a tiny little section that appears on page 8, but it's this little sidebar about how to run horror games responsibly. And
cool.
it's a direct conversation to, Dungeon Master saying, hey, this book is scary. It's full of a lot of scary things. You need to talk to your players and you need to address, fears and concerns and lines and veils before you ever start. And so just have that conversation. And the fact that appeared in the book, it's like, it really is just opening the door to those simple, direct conversations. Keeping it in mind and keeping it simple, I think is the best way to accomplish that, being honest and open about things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I noticed that sidebar too as I was flipping through the opening chapters.
I was so happy that got in this book.
Yeah, and it's necessary, especially with a lot of the themes of isolation and paranoia and horror, as you mentioned, that are in this setting. As that's part of the key selling point of this book is that you get to play in this this creepy area.
It's scary. This whole book is very scary, but very, very fun.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of how streamed games and podcasts about Dungeons and Dragons play has informed the design and the way we present to dungeon masters. There's a lot of talk about that could potentially be a negative thing in the hobby, but I think that this is a perfect example of how it is improving, just general play around the table for everybody.
Yeah, and I like having the more of the conversations about being responsible, and having those conversations at the table, because those, I feel like that's something that's relatively new. I remember I haven't been playing D&D forever, but it's been about almost 15 years. Back in my day, we didn't have those conversations.
But
and there
Shelley,
was...
You're only 27. Is that possible?
Oh, I was a child.
In a past life.
Back in my day. But yeah, we didn't have those conversations. And I do remember that there were, some awkward times around the table where several of us would look at each other like, what did he just say? Can you say that?
Can you say that?
Can you say that? So I love that you're actually putting that right front and center in a huge book.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's, it's an exciting time to be designing for Dungeons and Dragons, because we are designing for a huge amount of people who have loved this game and have played this game for so long, but we're also at the same time writing for brand new players and a brand new, literally generations of people who are new to this hobby. So the way that, because now we're designing to keep fantasy, all the elements there, but to bring it and open it up into a world where it can be safe and fun and wonderful for literally every person. It's not about excluding anyone or, just catering to some people. Talking about themes of safety, and it's important to every single person. And some people are learning now what that means. And it's uncomfortable that people don't want you to be uncomfortable for a little bit. For so long, you've had to shove that down, and it's like, it's part of the game. But the fact that the conversations are actually being incorporated and actually being had by wizards is huge. And I think it's incredible to see.
Sweet. I think you guys have had a really good career, of designing, creating stuff, and I think you have a panel talking about that at D&D Celebration, which I want to get to in a little bit. But before we do, I want to ask for people who may be new to the hobby, as you're saying, like, what is exciting about Icewind Dale in general and Rime of the Frostmaiden in particular, as to why they might want to jump in and play this with their group, say after they've played something in the Essentials kit or the starter set. What do you think, Ashley?
Ooh, there's so much. I mean, Icewind Dale is a really fun environment. The environment itself becomes the obstacle, which I personally find really exciting about that. It's not just that you have this traditional trajectory of we're going on a quest and there's a boss to defeat and then that's it. It's like there's so many other kind of quest lines you can explore, and I think that the themes in this book about isolation are great for role play, and I think this book really challenges characters to be introspective and make interesting choices, which to me is the most compelling part about writing RPG content is getting people to think about those choices, and that's what's really memorable about it. And so I think in this book, it's definitely a horror book. It's definitely scary. It's definitely dark, but there's definitely moments of levity too. There's some really funny things in it, and just really like sweet and charming and memorable moments as well. And I love that the tone really balances that, because I think there's something in it for everyone. But just depending on what kind of role play you enjoy, if you enjoy combat, there's plenty of that. If you enjoy exciting and role play that'll really push your kind of choices for your characters, there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of interesting social interactions, even though there is this theme of isolation. There's really cool NPCs that you can encounter. The 10 towns as just a locale is really fun, because you have so many places to visit, and each place has its own like kind of distinct culture. And there's, I think, a lot of replayability in this module too, so you can always kind of revisit it in the future. And yeah, it's just really fun and unique. And I think it has what has made the other campaign books so exciting, but it also brings some new elements to the table, literally. So yeah, I think a lot of different kinds of players will like it. I think players who have been playing for a long time will enjoy it, and they'll recognize Easter eggs from lore from decades past. And I think new players will find it pretty approachable. And I think it would be a great first campaign for people. It's definitely one that I plan to run for new timers. So yeah.
Oh, cool.
That's cool. What do you think, Celeste, if you were to say, oh, hey, Dungeon Master who's just gotten a few sessions under your belt, what would be exciting about, what would they use to sell this to their players? Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Well, what I really enjoy is because with the campaigns we've had so far, I feel like we've had a lot of like especially with Waterdeep and like Mad Maid, very like urban and kind of confined settings so far for the campaign book. So Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden feels like the first book that was really made for your rangers and your druids and your nature loving party members, because so much of this book is exploring. You do have these the beacons of civilization here at like 10 towns, or the Goliath settlements, but these are like small and like scattered across this landscape, and most of the time it's that human versus nature, of all the plots, right? There's like human versus human, whatever. Human versus nature is the big one in this book. So it's constantly dealing with the themes that come up for wilderness exploration and survival, and dealing with blizzards and avalanches and freezing water. So this really feels like a book that speaks to the nature loving players, the survivalists. So I think that's sort of what makes it exciting, and then also maybe a little bit easier for dungeon masters to deal with, because you're not going to be running 100 NPCs, every episode like you would, in Waterdeep. You have your check-in points, and then a lot of the time it's dealing with the monsters and the environment. So I think that really caters in particular to folks who might be scared of like having to remember 1,000 people's names and create personalities. I think this is a great book to start off with. If you're new to dungeon mastering for that reason.
Right. You'd be like, oh man, what was that accent I gave this character 4 sessions ago? Am I going to do it the same?
You should check out my interview with Shelly about how to run all of these different NPCs if you do want to do that. But if you're scared,
the master of the mastering.
Yeah, come right here.
It seems like you guys just make it harder on yourselves, being these extra creative dungeon masters. Like, look at all my cool NPCs and my voice. Come on.
Oh, geez. I need to watch that, because I'm running Waterdeep Dragon Heist for my home game right now, and
it's an NPC.
My players have met some poorly voiced and named NPCs. Sorry to my group. Shout out to my group. But that's what's fun about like a campaign like Dragon Heist, of course, is that you do have all those fun NPCs. But I think that I think Celeste nailed it, that the environment is, I find personally, easier to run as a dungeon master. It's not because there's no rules and no story. It just it's just a different type of gameplay, which is fun.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of Out of the Abyss, which was the second adventure path out of the gate for 5th edition. But I loved that there was so much about like, you just need water and food and to get from point A to point B, and a lot of those qualities are present here, but they're just not as much demons, I guess.
Well, depends.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to go that far.
I mean, I don't want to spoil it. No.
But there's demons abound.
Every campaign has demons. You just have to believe in yourself.
The demons were with us all along.
You just have to find them within your own heart.
There's always demons in my campaign, again, as my home group can attest. I think they're tired of me always picking fiends for them to encounter.
Mm-hmm. There's
Sorry.
They're baddies.
There's definitely some real sweet devil influences going on here in this game, so that's a lot of fun. There's just so many cool new creatures and things that come up in this book. Oh, yeah,
I've got one of them behind me. If you can guess. There's a big honker from Whiz Kids.
Yes.
Love that guy,
Yes.
and the fact that it's about 400 pounds. So old.
Yeah.
And actually named Big Honker, which actually
Big
wasn't
Honker.
it a dinosaur in Tomb of Annihilation? I feel
was.
like when you
He is the
so
return of Honker.
you can bet on the dinosaurs when they're in the dinosaur racing in Port Anzaro, and
Big
I'm pretty sure there's one called Big Honker, which I remember
I think
because
you're
my
right.
character freed them.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
definitely on a free the dinosaurs quest.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
maybe
I
that's we
remember
should have put that in Icewind Dale as an Easter egg.
Rats.
I know, darn.
Yeah. So is there like I'm looking at these notes about Dino World, Celeste?
Oh yes, Dino World.
Dino World?
Yeah. Speaking of
The name
speaking
Dino,
of
the
like,
Flint-
hey,
of,
I'm Dino. This is my
dinosaurs.
world.
Dino?
yeah,
Dino. Is
Dino.
Dino.
Well, there is
Dino
a
was
character
the-
in the book called Dino the Dino, just to make things
More-
really
That's what I was
complicated.
talking about.
Yeah, so no, Dino World is my my latest publication I put out as one of the guild adepts. It's an Eberron adventure that is, well, very similar to a beloved movie of mine. Maybe you have heard of Jurassic Park, but one
heard of
of
it.
no, it's pretty good. You should watch it.
Small indie film.
You know, I was just thinking, I was like, wow, I really love dinosaurs. And you know what they like in Eberron? Dinosaurs. So I wrote an adventure called Dino World, which basically takes you into the Mournland, which is this very strange, spooky area in Eberron, full of abandoned things. And there is a theme park there that was themed all around dinosaurs that you get to explore and play in and solve some issues there. So that's Dino World. It was a great deal of fun for me to write. And, you know, do weird Photoshop of like Warforged inside of dinosaur suit costumes. It's a good time,
That's awesome.
everybody.
It's a little lighter than Icewind Dale. Rime of the
Yes, yeah. I
Frostmaiden.
think maybe
Okay.
it was a palate
Palate
cleanser.
cleanser.
I was like, you know, it's the world is pretty scary right now. We probably need some levity here. So,
A little
I
escape.
published Dino World.
Yeah. Levity in the form of, killer attack dinosaurs.
You know.
Yeah. Greg, you probably remember this, but when the team was first talking about the Rime of the Frostmaiden, and we were learning about the story, and it was like themes of like isolation and like despair, and and we were like, oh my god, paranoia. I'm like, that's crazy. Oh, wow. And then like flash forward a year later, so. I mean, obviously, you worked on this well before we, were in the current environment. But had you gotten the call to write this adventure, months from now, when hopefully this is all over, let's just say, would you have written anything differently? Like, is your own experiences now kind of like, let me tell you about isolation. I got
My
I can
pants
tell you.
that I'm wearing right now.
Let me
Yeah.
tell you about these
Totally
ugly shorts
inspired.
that
Yeah.
That would have been a good one. Yeah, like the fashion of being in quarantine for 6 months or whatever. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
everyone has weird pants on in the 10 towns, but don't worry about it.
That's what they're known for, like really
Right.
ill-fitting,
Really?
baggy shorts and
Yeah.
yoga pants.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, I think that now unfortunately, I feel like we have a much clearer understanding of isolation in many ways. I think for those of us who have never gone through something like this before, I certainly haven't, like really being truly isolated from, the communities is rough. And maybe some different elements of that. But I think in general, because Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden is so much about climate change, it's really an allegory for climate change. It's incredibly relevant right now, given the state of the West of the United States and of course other places around the world. So I think in that way, a lot of that has been relevant for a few years now. And I know that for me, that was what drew me to the project when Chris Perkins actually, I think he said that phrase in some way. And I was like, oh, wow, like how that's so interesting, because with D&D, like everything is about, you know, the choices that we make and kind of our collective action toward things, which I think is what's really inspiring about D&D, is that even if you're not a traditional hero in many, you know, circumstances, characters are working toward, you know, a bigger goal, something that's greater than them. And right now, the big threat for us is climate change, you know, around the world. And so I think just keeping that in mind, when I was writing my sections in the book, like that was definitely at the forefront of my mind and continues to be important. So I hope that that'll be a takeaway for people playing this game. I mean, I hope that it's of course fun and memorable, but maybe it'll, you know, inspire some other action or thinking about these other issues that we face. And yeah, so I guess it's been relevant. Of course, it's relevant now in different ways given the pandemic. I think if this book were about more plague-related things, that would have been a lot less fun than I think the book will actually be.
Yeah. Maybe in a few years. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what Chris Perkins is being inspired by right now. I can only imagine. Cute dogs and...
There's Milo references throughout.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, both of you have mentioned how, Celeste, you're talking about how you were doing stuff for the Guild of Depths on the Dungeon Masters Guild, and Ashley, of course, you've done great stuff with the Uncaged anthologies that have been up there, and so you've had a lot of growth and experience in writing in this, industry over the last few years. And again, we're talking about this on a panel with you guys during D&D Celebration about how to get into the line of work that you guys have been doing. So maybe, you can give us a quick preview of that panel and talk about what it was like getting started and any, quick advice you might give. And then, of course, when we can watch that panel and learn even more. What about you, Celeste? So yeah, let's stick with you.
Yeah, so I think my number one piece of advice I have to people who want to get into writing more, actually monetizing writing adventures and everything, and not even necessarily going to like the full freelance level, is to be good to the folks around you. Because honestly, we're a very small community, and reaching out to other community members to support them, to offer friendship, to work together on things, to teach and to grow with each other is the absolute number one piece of advice I can give, because you cannot do this alone. You can't make these books alone, just in terms of like the amount of work and like layout and editing and all of these things, all of these elements that go into these books. So get to know the people around you, support the people around you. I make money from the DMs Guild and from selling my books, and like 50% of that goes back into buying more stuff from other people that I know and admire. And, that's always the way, right? The people who are asking you to support their Patreon are the ones supporting like 50 Patreons out there. So get involved, form friendships, be kind and supportive, especially on social media. It's more important than ever to be responsible and respectful in how you conduct yourself in your business, because the people around you, they're going to be the ones who open doors for you. And if you can open doors for others too, then that's the strongest thing and the best thing you can do to start writing and being a part of this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't agree more with any of that. I know just for me personally, anytime I feel like I've gotten a great opportunity, I pass on another opportunity to someone else, just because I think it's really important that we're always thinking about other people and trying to, as Celeste said, open doors for other people, because we're not doing this in a vacuum. We all are kind of in this together. And I'm not a believer in being competitive with my fellow writers. There's always things that we, excel at, and there's things that we can always improve at. And I think that when we have a great community, like with the Valkyries working on this book, like I wouldn't have wanted to do it without them. The experience was so much better, and the book is better because of it as well. So I think that getting involved in the community, there's, lots of groups and Discord channels and people to follow on Twitter and lots of ways to get involved. And in some ways, I would just say that there's a lot of ways to kind of just jump in. You can join a collaborative project. I know for Uncaged Anthology, a lot of our writers were brand new to writing content, and now they're doing amazing things on their own and starting their own anthologies. And there's a lot of, content creator programs. Dungeon Masters Guild is pretty much the best way to get started with writing D&D content. And you can start small. And actually, in fact, I recommend starting small and really, yes.
Start small.
Yes. Which I think is something that, I think a lot of us have dreams to write, a full book, a full Icewind Dale type book, but that's a lot to do. And these books are not created by one person. They're created by groups of people. And you can see just the list of playtesters in the credits for Icewind Dale. Like there's a lot of people that go into producing these books, and names that we don't even see in the books. So you're not required to make content like that on your own. So start small, have reasonable goals, know that this is a long-term, kind of career change or endeavor. Like you don't need to reach arbitrary milestones of success. None of that matters. Yeah. You don't have to have the same goals as other people. And it's a great time to start writing D&D content, and nothing's really stopping you. I do think that sometimes if you need a little bit of structure, there are communities out there for that, including the RPG Writer Workshop, which I run for a bunch of writers, some of whom write for D&D, but all sorts of rule sets. So there are people who want to help you get started. So don't be afraid to jump in.
Cool. And I love that what you are saying, because I think when someone is ready to offer advice, we start thinking, okay, so I have to study this, research this, pay for this class, join this work. And you're both just be kind, get to know your fellow community. But it's so true, because so many, not just learning from the other people in your community, but you don't know who's going to be working on an anthology and can bring you in or can offer you that experience. And just reading other people's material and supporting other people in their endeavors, and you're learning from all of that too. But it's a really good message to put out there. And I think that you both really excel at living that truth too, because I did want to talk about the RPG Writers Workshop, Ashley, that you run, and also I know, Celeste, that you consult, you offer consultations, which is a great thing to do while in quarantine. But you're both very, very supportive to the other community members out there, for people who are experienced or people who are just getting started. So if we can, I would love to just dig in a little bit more to the RPG Writer Workshop and just what that is and how people can get involved, and then also Celeste talking a little bit about how you can get a consultation.
Yeah, sure. So the RPG Writer Workshop is an online learning community where we help people get started with writing tabletop RPG content. We host a Write Your First Adventure workshop twice a year. Our next one's coming up in November. And ultimately, though, we have a community that we work very hard to foster. And our goal is always just to help get people started, because I think that you can tell people just jump in, just start, but start what? Sometimes that's not good advice. And sometimes I remember someone told me that when I was trying to learn how to knit, and I was like, I literally don't know how to hold the needles. So sometimes that's not really good advice to just tell people that. I think it's well-intended, but I think creatives benefit from having a little bit of structure. And the goal with the workshop is always to help people develop a process that works for them. And if you've never really written a full project before, or seen something through to completion, because a lot of people have great ideas, but actually getting to the finish line is challenging. And so what we do is we work to try to introduce them to a process that works for me and our other instructors, what's helped us actually get work finished out into the world, with the hopes that once people do that, they'll realize, okay, here's what I liked about this, and here's what I didn't like, and here's how I'm going to tailor this to my own work. Because we found that that's empowering and exciting for people when they feel like they've accomplished something and they can actually make it their own, because there's no one creative process that works for everyone. And there's also no one way to enter this industry. And I think that when people are at just different phases in their writing careers, like some people need a little bit more, support at first. Some people are like, I don't need this, but I want someone to look at my work in a few months when I have a draft ready. Like there's people of all levels. And so we try our best to really foster a supportive environment for people at all stages, but especially folks who feel like they need a little bit more structure and support to get going, or don't really know what an adventure should look like when it's finished, or know the basics of adventure design. I mean, and I can just attest to our own team, our own writing team for Icewind Dale. Like everyone who wrote on this book has come from a totally different background, a totally different path. There's no one way to these things, and they're all great and they're all equal, and everyone's at different stages of their journey. So that's kind of the main goal of the workshop. And we also offer, other courses on different aspects of adventure design. We have a course on treasure, which is really fun, a marketing course. And, we're working on expanding our course catalog to really, touch on all these different topics that are important for RPG creators. But I say that the community is definitely the best part of the workshop, beyond just the curriculum. And it's something we're always updating based off of the feedback from our community. So hopefully we're one of many resources available for people who aspire to work on books like Icewind Dale, if that's one of their goals.
Great little Valkyries groups all over.
You could have said that's a great place to start, but no, you went with the be kind part. So.
Well, it's true, because I don't, and also I'm not here to sell the workshop. I just my goal is to here's a resource if you feel like you need it, but we're not the only learning program. We're not I also am still learning so much myself. So it's not that we're a bunch of experts and we're our way is the best way. Really the best advice is to just be nice to people and make friends with people. Yeah. And also do that with be earnest about it, because people can tell when you're befriending people for clout or opportunities. It's kind of easy to see through that. And so, I mean, also all my best friends now are people I met through D&D. It's worth it. I have matching tattoos with people I've met through D&D. I mean, yes, right. And I mean, including Celeste is, someone I consider a close friend. You'll meet, your life will be better if you really put your whole heart into it, and you'll get opportunities and you'll become a better writer. It's it's a win-win all around to just.
Why are we all not writing adventures?
Right. Exactly.
Celeste, I think another very important thing in any industry, but especially in a creative industry, is being able to accept feedback, which I think you're probably excellent at giving. So giving and receiving feedback is important. But if people wanted to get involved or a consultation with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so I started offering consultations when I did, make the jump into going full-time freelance. So, in between projects, I found myself, I was okay, well, what can I do to, potentially create an income source for myself, but also give back? What skills do I have to offer people? Was my big thing. So I decided to start doing these consultation appointments. So basically through my Ko-Fi or my coffee. Sorry, everyone.
I do that too. I pronounced it Ko-Fi every time I read
it. You can actually go onto my Ko-Fi account and book 45 minutes of my time for a creative consultation. And really, whatever you want to talk about is definitely up to you. I've had people, come to ask me about how to start a podcast, how to market a D&D podcast.
Was it Greg Tito that asked you that?
Was it Greg Tito? It's a secret. Playing confidentiality.
Greg, are you muted, by the way?
I think you are muted. Oh, no.
Have I been muted this whole time?
Yeah, it got awfully quiet.
Luckily, I wasn't asking any questions. I was just listening to this amazing content.
Yeah. So, I mean, my consultations, I've had people send me adventures that they've written and we'll go through it together. Or I've had people ask me, how do I get started, in RPGs? Or I've also just had DMs who are maybe in a tough spot with their home group. And they're like, oh man, my players have gotten me into this dungeon I wasn't expecting, and I don't know what to do, and I just don't know what to do. So I've been all over the map with these consults, and because when I asked myself what skills did I had to offer, when I was putting this together, I was like, wow, I have learned how to do a lot of things the hard way. And I think what I can offer is helping people not have to learn it the hard, miserable way. Because I know for me, like I was at a point in my life very recently, until recently, where I really didn't have other people in my life that I could talk to about Dungeons and Dragons. You know, I didn't have friends who loved it and played it, and I wasn't surrounded by those people. So I would have loved to have, you know, the ear of just another dungeon master or another person, like just to help me start a podcast or to help me do any of these things. So that's why I started those consultations as just a way that people can come at whatever level and just get help, you know, if it's setting up a microphone, because that can be hard. And it is hard to find on the internet, like what microphone should I use for podcasting? You are inundated with just answers and like and you're not, I don't know, who do I trust? So, you know, just offering those consultations was my kind of way of like making it less hard for people to do anything in this industry.
It works. It's such a great idea. And I want to do one now with you on not even.
I know.
Anytime about anything. Yeah, just head to my coffee. Let's book some time.
I'm going to call it a Ko-Fi.
I always call it Ko-Fi. And then somebody said coffee and I was like, oh, because you buy coffees.
I know, but they have to be all like clever and creative with their spelling and the hyphen.
Oh boy. Just doing the best I can.
Maybe you should do a consult with them on branding.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let's talk about your branding.
That's awesome. Well, you both are a wonderful resource, and I'm so glad that you were able to contribute to Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. People will be able to get that now. It's out there. It's available to play, and hopefully everyone listening can join in the D&D celebration. Well, they'll be able to see you, and you'll learn even more about how to join the ranks of being an RPG writer. Yeah, sound like a plan? We mentioned you guys and all the stuff you're doing, but give me some links. Give me some people where people can go to and find out about all the stuff you've talked about, and maybe just see what's happening on your social sphere. Ashley, let's start with you.
Sure. So my website is scribemind.com. The word scribe and mind smushed together as one word. So that's where it's the best place to find all the various things that I'm working on. You can visit the RPG Writer Workshop website at rpgwriterworkshop.com. I'm on Twitter at Ashley NH Warren, and there's links to other stuff there as well. And I just also wanted to quickly shout out the rest of our writer team for Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden, because they really just are so special to both of us. And I just want to say thanks to all of them for their support, and I'm really proud of what we all made together. That's my little spiel.
Yay. Love it. What about you, Celeste?
Yeah, so my name is Celeste Conowitch. If you didn't catch that, you can find everything I do, including my stream schedule, all the podcasts I do, and all of the books I have published on my website, celesteconowitch.com. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at cconowitch, and then you can always, if you want to book a consult, head to coffee.com/Celeste Conowitch or cconowitch. Check on my Twitter page. All those links are pinned and everything there. And also check out Venture Maidens, which is an actual play D&D 5th edition podcast that I run, DM, produce, and edit. So check that out if you want to see some D&D in action. It'll be out by then. There's a special Venture Maidens treat for you with Rime of the Frostmaiden coming up. So definitely make sure to check that out. Yes. Thank you all so much for having me.
No
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who made this book possible. I know you all on the Wizards team have done so much prepping and marketing and getting this ready. This has been a dream I've had since I was 10 years old to write one of these books. So
I'm just gonna say, I remember talking to you about the Venture Maidens gosh, was that 3 years ago? 2 years ago?
It was a while ago.
It was a long time ago. But I fondly remember you. I think you had a glass of red wine while you were doing the interview. I think both me and
I
Shelley.
did not while I was doing the interview. I talked about. I definitely made a joke about a 6-pack.
Wow, that really stayed with Greg.
I have literally an image of you like doing this. So
I didn't have one, but I like that. That's how you see me, Greg. Like swirling a lovely Merlot.
You know, like Strahd sitting there.
It's very on brand. Yeah. So, you know, I'm glad that comes across in my personality.
I love it. And it's so cool to see the transition of where you're, you know, where you've come from then. So great stuff. Thanks for coming back. And you two are awesome. Yes.
You really are. Thank you for everything you do for this community.
Oh, thank you for having us. Thank you for supporting us.
On eagle's wings.
Oh, jeez.
On snowy owlbear's wings.
Yes.
There we go. Brand.
Yes.
Always be Brandon.
So pretty.